It all starts with a new game called Night Defense that promises a big reward. The prize for the first winner is 10 billion won, an amount that would change any life. Our protagonist thinks that with this money, he could finally solve his problems. In his dark room, he dreams of money, because with it, the young man could finally escape. He wants to escape from something, and on his computer screen, we see the news about a famous politician. This politician is Kim Yui-soo, and another article reveals a little about his life with his son. Your son is an exemplary boy, the best in school, and a source of pride for his perfect family. It turns out that the boy in the photo is our protagonist, who is now at school watching his own news. In the room, a girl approaches him, complimenting him on being amazing, but he looks uncomfortable. Soon after, she calls him to talk in private with a somewhat suspicious smile. In the distance, another student watches with envy at how close the two model students seem to be. But in an alley, the girl insists on something, while the young man just ignores her coldly. Then it is revealed that it was all a trap, and the girl was with a group of bullies. Jae-hoon says he already lent her 300,000 won and refuses to give her another amount. With that, one of the guys grabs him and threatens him, saying that he will expose his illegal website to everyone. The attacker says that the girl is also an accomplice, because she knew everything. Mockingly, the bully suggests that everyone turn themselves in to the police then. He asks who will lose in this situation, and the protagonist panics. After all, the reputation of his father, an incorruptible politician, would be tarnished forever. With that, the girl approaches him, trying to convince him with her charm to give her the money. His words echo in the mind of the young man who arrives home and stops in front of a door. His hand trembles with nervousness, but he gathers his courage and decides to open the door to the room. Upon entering the room, the boy is clearly frustrated with the whole situation. Suddenly, a voice startles him, asking why he is just standing there. The famous politician looks at him with a serious look and asks if he has anything to say. The young man just lowers his head, unable to look his father in the eyes. His father reminds him that the election is coming, and even if his son doesn't help, he at least shouldn't do anything that could tarnish his family's honor. Seeing his son's silence, the politician grabs him by the collar and demands an answer. The man tightly grips the young man's collar, showing all his anger. The young man then smiles forcefully and tells his father not to worry, as he will not disappoint him. His father looks at him with contempt and asks if there is anything that could disappoint him more. The politician continues saying that his son just needs to live doing exactly what he tells him to do. With these words, the boy falls to the ground completely without hope, because this is his life. On the ground, the boy despairs and wonders what he should do, and why this is happening to him. Suddenly, a hand touches his shoulder, startling him. At that moment, the protagonist turns around completely panicked about what it could be. But to his surprise, it was only his pet cat that was there meowing at him. Relieved, the young man calls his cat and asks if the feline was worried about him. Sitting in his chair, the boy plays with his cat, who climbs on him and starts tickling him. He then holds the kitten in the air, calling the little animal a little pest. Hugging his only friend, he says that no one is on his side, neither at school nor at home. With that, the boy turns to the computer where we see a game screen. His eyes shine as he has cleared 99 waves and only has one more to go. But to his complete misfortune, the game over screen appears, and he loses everything. On the cell phone screen, the level 100 wave appears, along with the game over message. All he can see is the game over screen shining brightly in front of him. Desperately, the boy wonders why this always happens to him at the last moment. With the cell phone in his hand, he realizes that the game seems impossible because he has tried hundreds of times. Elsewhere, a famous streamer is also outraged by the insane difficulty of this same game. The angry boy warns that no one should play this game because it is complete garbage. It turns out that many players manage to clear all 99 waves without any major issues. However, to this day, no one in the world has managed to surpass the 100th wave and become a legend. But still, he looks at his kitty and thinks he can't just give up now. The young man knows that the game is the only way to escape his horrible life with his cat. His hope is a rare item he got from the boss of stage 99. But even with this super strong item, the protagonist was unable to get past the final stage. Out of ideas, the boy wonders how he can finally finish the challenge. At that moment, your cat's paw touches the screen right on top of the item he was looking at. Surprised by the animal's attitude, the boy looks at it and calls it by its name. The cat's paw accidentally presses the button to dismantle the rare item he had. Completely in shock, the boy can only scream his cat's name. At this point, the game notifies you that Rezeldrake's heart has been successfully dismantled by the feline. The young man becomes desperate because all his progress and effort have been thrown away, but instead of disappearing, the rare item turned into 1,000 enhancement fragments. In his chair, the boy laments that now the only way is to start all over again from scratch. Pulling his hair, he wonders if starting the game over will do any good. However, something unexpected happens, and along with the fragments, a new item appears: the Dragon Soul. Confused, the protagonist looks at the screen and tries to understand what just happened there. He wonders why normally, when you disassemble an item, you only receive fragments, until a light goes on in his mind, and he realizes that maybe there is another way out. At that moment, the Dragon Soul is used, and a new hope arises for the boy. With a determined look, the young man understands that this is the key to winning wave number 100. Without hesitation, the protagonist moves his finger towards the button to start a new journey. Then the scene cuts to the boy's real life in an ordinary classroom in Korea. The protagonist is an ordinary student who during the day has a normal life like any other. But when night comes, his routine changes completely, and he locks himself in his room to play. In fact, the game has become an addiction, and he doesn't stop playing even when he's on the street. So when he gets home, the young man runs straight to the computer and continues his journey. After all, he had already won 99 waves and only had one left to finish the game. But thanks to his cat and the Dragon Soul, he got a new chance to try. At that moment, the boy analyzes his new strategy and believes that this time everything will work out. Full of confidence, the boy starts the last wave, the most difficult of all. With the help of the Dragon Soul, your character now faces a horde of monsters. Desperately, he uses all his skills while hoping that everything will work out. With this, an overwhelming power is released and destroys all enemies on the screen. His hope is renewed because the young man feels that this time the result will be different. With his eyes fixed on the screen, the protagonist shouts that he will certainly win this battle. And to your surprise, the long-awaited victory screen finally appears on the monitor. The player is ecstatic because all his effort and dedication have been rewarded. But his moment of joy is interrupted when the door opens and his father appears asking what he zeroed. The boy turns pale when he sees the man who says he received a call from his friends. Apparently, these guys dared to ask his father for money, using the boy's mistake as an excuse. Then the older man remembers that he had already warned him not to do anything that would tarnish his honor. Desperately, the young man apologizes to his father while shaking with fear from head to toe. He promises it will never happen again, but his father is already lifting a golf club. Without any mercy, the man strikes with all his strength towards his son. With that, the protagonist screams in pain as the object hits his body squarely. His eyes widen in pure shock and despair at the situation he is in. Amidst the shards of his notebook, he thinks about how weak he is and how he can't do anything against his father. A tear runs down his face as he remembers that that man never did anything for him. At that point, the boy stands up and with a blank look asks his father where his cat Ruru is. The man coldly responds that he no longer needs such a thing, and the young man does not understand. Upon hearing this, the protagonist grits his teeth in a mixture of hatred and impotence. His father then looks at him and asks in a threatening tone what that expression on his face means. In a panic, the boy repeats the question with a look of hatred, wanting to know where his cat is. Without any emotion, the father reveals that the pet is already with his deceased mother. This revelation hits the young man hard, and tears of pure despair stream from his eyes. Then the man holds his son's face and tells him that he just needs to live doing what he is told. This way you will have wealth and honor, so he warns you not to disappoint him ever again. With a disturbing smile, the older man says he believes in the boy's potential. He ends by saying that he trusts him, while the protagonist remains paralyzed by pain. In his thoughts, the boy says that he hates all of it and that he simply can't take it anymore. He screams in his mind that he can no longer bear that life of suffering and humiliation. Suddenly, a system window appears congratulating you for finishing the game in first place. But now it's too late, and the boy thinks there's no reason to keep holding on. Then your destroyed cell phone shines, and a system message invites you to something new. The screen draws you into the world of that game as a bright light bursts through the window. With that, a great beam of light descends from the heavens and reaches a city in another universe. There, two knights look at the light and say that the person who will save them has finally arrived. The boy appears in a great hall, and all the knights bow before him, calling him a hero. The people of that kingdom also celebrate his arrival, saying that finally the savior has appeared. But the boy notices something strange about himself because even with everything he's been through, he can't cry. He realizes that his feelings have been zeroed out, and now he simply can't feel anything. At that moment, a bearded man clears his throat to get the attention of the young man, who remains standing still. Then the king of that place asks him if he really is the legendary knight who will save the kingdom. The boy looks at the monarch's face and recognizes him from somewhere, but doesn't know exactly where. Then he remembers that that man is the same king who appears in the intro of the game he finished. The monarch introduces himself as Bayless Jordia III, the young king of the kingdom of Jordia. He then explains that the kingdom is in a terrible crisis with monsters invading from all sides. In the middle of the conversation, a soldier comes running and says that they are in big trouble. The boy hears all of this and begins to process the current situation and the scenario of the kingdom. The messenger then approaches the throne and begins to whisper the details of the situation. The boy confirms that it is identical to the intro of the game he played called Knight Defense. Because of the urgency of the situation, the king says he will skip the formalities and get straight to the point. At that moment, a game screen appears asking if he accepts to be the commander of the knights. He then touches the ground to confirm that it is real and prepares to give his only condition. His condition is simple. He asks the monarch for the small sum of 1 billion won. Then a memory comes to mind showing him in his room while petting his cat. The boy remembers a moment of happiness that soon turned into total despair. He spent nights playing in his dark room with the company of his little feline. Back in the present, the nobles whisper that the hero seems weak to ask for 1 billion. The monarch doesn't know what 1 billion is, but promises to give the young man whatever he wants to protect everyone. The protagonist is surprised by the king's words, who reinforces that he will grant any wish. In astonishment, the boy asks if the sovereign will really give him anything he asks for. With a strange smile, the king tells the boy not to worry and just follow his orders. At that moment, the protagonist understands the truth, and an expression of terror takes over his face. His eyes turn red as he remembers that his true desire is for wealth and honor as well. A traumatic memory flashes through his mind of someone promising him whatever he wanted. With eyes full of hatred, the young man prepares to give his definitive answer to the monarch. Remembering the promise, the monarch tries to convince the young man to believe his words. But the protagonist, with a cry of fury, refuses the proposal and says he will not do it. Faced with the response, the sovereign is completely shocked and does not understand what happened. The boy then remembers that wherever he went, everyone used him because he was the son of a congressman. Even the people he liked would come close just to take advantage of him. Since he was little, he was manipulated by his father and everyone around him without exception. Shouting, the boy asks if they want him to become a slave to the knights. He says with contempt that he does not need the fame or wealth the ruler offered. The king just watches in silence as the boy rejects everything he most desires. At that moment, the hero looks at the screen and tells everyone there to go to hell. Without hesitation, his finger moves towards the button to decline the monarch's offer. The nobles and the king are astonished because they cannot believe that the hero is doing this. Upon confirmation, the screen turns red and the system accepts the young person's refusal. After a while, the kingdom was attacked by countless monsters that appeared from all sides, and because of the player's failure to protect the kingdom, everything was completely destroyed. Everything was destroyed, and the boy thought that was the end. But something changed. Suddenly the system informs him that because he rejected humans, he can choose a new side. In this way, a secret route is unlocked, and the monster faction becomes available to the young man. The boy is confused by this new option, and tries to understand what it means. He then realizes that it will not be a game of defense, and that he will now be on the attacking side. Going back a little in time, the king says that every choice comes with its responsibilities. Angrily, the sovereign shouts to everyone that the boy is no longer a legendary knight. Furious, he declares him an enemy who not only humiliated him, but also betrayed the country. Even so, the boy looks at the ruler with a firm gaze and without any remorse. The king continues his speech, saying that the young man has put all the people in danger. With that, the monarch orders his knights to attack and finish off the traitor. The guards quickly advance towards the hero with a thirst for revenge in their eyes. The boy then thinks that he has endured too much humiliation for too long now. In an instant, all the soldiers in the kingdom surround the boy, pointing their weapons at him. But the young man is not shaken, and with his eyes shining, he just screams for everyone to die. However, the knight's swords stop inches from the boy's neck, who stares at them with hatred. From his body, a red energy explodes, throwing all the soldiers away violently. The king is completely shocked to see the absurd power the former hero has just used. At that moment, the system confirms the faction choice, and the young man begins to transform. The system informs that it will now surpass human abilities and cause hostility in them. Then the system window reveals what the monster faction's ultimate goal will be. With a determined look, the boy faces the human faction as his new great enemy. He then declares that it is now his turn to attack and no longer just defend himself. With that, the boy sees a horde of monsters preparing for the first wave of attack. The system informs him that he will only have 10 minutes to prepare before the start. As time passes, the system reminds you again what your faction's objective is. The ultimate goal is nothing less than to completely destroy the human faction. As a reward for completing the task, he will be able to pick up an item and take it to his world. Upon hearing that he can return home, the young man is surprised and starts thinking about something. He remembers a girl from his world and thinks maybe he can take her with him. With that, the red energy coming from his body violently throws all the soldiers away. The knights stand up confused and wonder about the sinister energy they felt from the boy. Even the king is shocked by the situation and wonders if it can really be called a monster. The monarch had never felt such energy from a person in his entire life. The boy realizes that faction selection was not something that existed in the original version of the game. Then the main quest window appears in front of you, with the monster faction oath. Now with white hair, he notices that even with the different mission the game progresses normally. Thinking about this, he knows that if everything is as in the game, then now he should get a summoning ticket. But to the young man's surprise, instead of the ticket he was expecting, the system delivered a large egg. The system window explains that in place of the knight, he received an S-rank monster egg. The protagonist then agrees to hatch the item, and at the same time a strong light comes out from inside the egg. In a few seconds, the item breaks completely, revealing the creature that was inside. The knights nearby are completely terrified by the summoned creature. The boy can't believe what he sees because he knows very well the monster that has just been summoned. He summoned none other than the cold-blooded dragon, a boss from Wave 99 of the game. The boy thinks that if this dragon were summoned in the middle of the kingdom, it would be the end of everything. But to his surprise, the fearsome monster appears as a small, cute creature. He is shocked to see that the summoned being is only a level 1 hatchling. The little creature looks at its new master with an innocent and curious look. Then the little dragon begins to lick the young man's finger like a kitten. Still not believing what happened, the white-haired boy is speechless. At that point, a system notification appears telling him to use the Eye of the Sovereign. This passive skill allows him to see the status of surrounding monsters and items. The knights recover from their shock and see that he has summoned only a small monster. With their guard down, the commander orders all his troops to advance to attack. The protagonist decides that no matter the situation, he must survive at all costs. Then he activates his new ability, and his eye glows with an intense purple light. The boy knows that his only hope now lies in the power of his little companion. Analyzing the information, he sees that the creature has the dragon's breath skill. Without hesitation, the young man orders Ruzzledrak to use his ability against the soldiers. Before him, the knights advance, ready for the final attack without any mercy. The boy then yells for his little companion to use dragon breath. Obeying its master, the little creature begins to prepare its powerful ability. In an instant, a beam of red energy is fired, hitting a soldier head-on. The knight commander is shocked by the small being's destructive power. The energy blast passes through the entire enemy front line without difficulty. The attack is so strong that it passes through the palace wall and reaches the city. With that, a giant piece of a tower collapses on innocent citizens. The result is a gigantic hole in the castle wall, leaving everyone speechless. Even the silver-haired youth is amazed at his dragon's power. One of the survivors shouts that the palace wall has been destroyed with one blow. The others wonder what kind of demon the boy was able to summon there. The protagonist realizes that everything was easier than he thought, and already plans his next step. Then a system message appears, saying that he can return to his original world. To do this, he needs to conquer the castle and obtain one of the numerous items that exist there. He thinks that among so many items in the castle, one of them will have the ability he wants. After all, the boy is in no rush to return to his original world. At this point, your only focus is to complete the mission while your pet looks hungry. Suddenly, a man with a crown calls him the representative of the human faction. Sitting on his throne, the king continues his speech with a very serious look on his face. But the boy says he will bring about their destruction because he needs his reward. Meanwhile, chaos is spreading in the city due to the huge hole in the palace. A blonde knight watches the scene from afar without understanding what happened in the castle. Back in the main hall, the king looks desperate, asking for more time. The woman then runs towards His Majesty, asking him to hold on. The silver-haired youth calls for his dragon Rizaldrak to fire another blow. Seeing this, a soldier panics and orders them to form a shield barrier. However, the protagonist knows that it is useless because the last attack has already gone through everything. He then points forward as his little companion prepares a new power. With a serious expression, the boy's target is revealed to be the king himself. A man in golden armor arrives, shouting that he is there to save Her Majesty. The soldiers quickly raise their shields to form a protective barrier around the throne. The silver-haired boy remembers that the previous attack was strong enough to destroy everything. Meanwhile, a huge sphere of black energy begins to form in front of them. Seeing the size of the power, his little dragon despairs and cries out for the king. The knight who just arrived looks back and says that the ruler is safe. But a soldier beside the throne asks why the enemy's magic suddenly stopped. The protagonist then explains that just like knights, monsters also spend mana. The skill screen shows that dragon breath costs a lot of energy and causes dark circles under the eyes. Realizing this, the young man thinks that even a normal attack would be enough to end everything. However, when he tries a new blow, the power simply disappears into thin air. The boy complains that it was too easy, and now he has to wait for the skill's cooldown. Suddenly, the woman from before asks if he was the one who dared to aim at her king's life. The Dragon Master and his companion look up with a serious expression. A screen then explains that knights are divided into ranks, such as apprentice and lower rank. In addition to the ranks shown before, we also see the ranks B, A, and finally the elite knights S. Among them is one of the 12 elite knights of the Zodiac, the warrior known as Ares. This is Ares, a man with silver hair and a muscular body, who is there to protect the king. Being the strongest knight in the kingdom, he asks worriedly if His Majesty is okay. The Dragon Master realizes that the situation has become very complicated for his side. The ruler then declares that war is imminent and orders that the invader be eliminated immediately. At this, the elite knight accepts the command as his lance begins to glow brightly. Completely panicked, the young man wonders how he will deal with an S-rank knight. His eyes widen as he remembers that the warrior is one of the 12 S-rank knights. Then the warrior prepares an area skill and warns that the young man will dance to his death. At that moment, he unleashes a powerful fire attack, proving himself to be a formidable opponent. The ability called Flame Wall creates a massive explosion of fire. The boy and his pet look up to see the huge wave of fire coming towards them. On his face, we see the pure terror of someone who is about to face his end. The gigantic explosion of fire then hits one of the castle's towers, destroying everything. The explosion of fire engulfs everything, and in the midst of the flames, we see a hand reaching out in despair. The skill not only hits the target but also the knights, who scream in pain from the heat. Fallen to the ground, our hero is in shock as calls for help echo throughout the place. A system screen shows that the flame wall shoots fire in a straight line towards the target. As he knew he was the target, the young man managed to dodge it at the last second along with his pet. He looks back at the bodies and realizes that the enemy doesn't care about the allies. With that, the boy grits his teeth in anger because of the elite warrior's cruel attitude. The S-rank opponent then calls him a rat for dodging his powerful attack. Ares threatens by saying that he will make a beautiful hole of fire right in the heart of the invader. The protagonist then realizes that the enemy's skill is on cooldown. Still, he knows he has no chance, and his pet screams in pain from being injured. At that moment, the knight jumps and warns him not to move as it will hurt even more. Completely desperate, the boy tries to find a way out of this impossible situation. He reflects that he didn't come this far on his journey, just to have an end like this. This is when a main quest reward window pops up with a random item box. The main mission reward appears before the boy, and he begs the system to be quick. Completely out of time, he shouts for the item to be delivered immediately. The system then confirms that the random box reward was successfully accepted. With that, the item finally appears in his hands, glowing with a strong golden light. He then throws the box on the ground, and a burst of smoke throws the enemy away from the scene. At that moment, the box begins to shine with a golden light, blinding the boy's vision. From within the light, a dark sword begins to materialize, leaving the protagonist shocked. At that, the boy's eye shines and he uses the Eye of the Sovereign skill to analyze the weapon. The screen shows the Hellbringer sword with a magic attack power of 999. The item was of rank S, and the young man did not understand who summoned it there at that moment. He then realizes that with all this power, the item wants him to annihilate the human faction. Immediately after, the colossal blade falls with everything, and its tip sticks into the ground with force. The impact of the weapon is so powerful that it cracks the entire marble floor around our hero. The boy is shocked by the absurd power of the sword and wonders if it is real. Suddenly, a wave of destructive energy begins to spread through the hall from the blade. The sword's energy wave destroys the hall with overwhelming force. With the impact, the protagonist is thrown away and is confused by the situation. He is then thrown into the air by the force of the explosion as he screams in despair. The boy is irritated because the palace cannot even support the weight of a weapon. At that moment, the entire ceiling of the place begins to collapse because of the power of the blade. The young man is shocked when he realizes the extent of the destruction that is taking place. As he falls amidst the rubble, he thinks he cannot end his journey there. Suddenly, he manages to steady himself in the air and abruptly stops his fall. Surprised, the boy notices that he has stopped falling and wonders what could have happened. Looking down, he sees that the destruction has mysteriously ceased in the hall. Just then, a small red being with pointy ears appears out of nowhere on his shoulder. The hero smiles as he sees his little dragon Reincarnation, who saved him from certain death. Because of this, people in the city look up at the sky and are amazed to see someone flying. The boy feels relieved to have narrowly escaped a tragic end, but now he knows that there is a great difference in power between him and the kingdom. He understands that he needs to become stronger, as S-class knights will continue to appear in his path. So your priority now is to escape the kingdom as fast as you can to save yourself. Meanwhile, one of the elite knights is furious that he let the invader slip through his fingers. Ares feels like a pathetic and incompetent fool for failing to accomplish his mission. He keeps blaming himself and thinks he should have been washed away at that time. At that moment, a page interrupts him, saying that His Majesty is calling him. The knight then runs to the throne room and asks his king for forgiveness for his failure. But the monarch interrupts him and says that the sun is setting, and Ares knows what that means. As night falls, the monsters that attack the kingdom become much stronger and more dangerous. That is why His Majesty puts him in command of the war and sends him to protect the walls of the kingdom. Even with the previous failure, the king still fully trusts in the abilities of his elite knight. Meanwhile, far away, the protagonist and his dragon fly towards the sunset. The boy remembers a tower defense game with $1 billion prize that was almost impossible to beat. In that game, the first wave of attack was composed of a horde of wild and cruel goblins. He knows that with Ares on the walls, it will be impossible for the first wave of monsters to invade the kingdom. He thinks that if he were an S-rank assassin instead of Ares, he would already be lost, but soon realizes he is falling. His little dragon also seems to be in trouble, so the boy asks him to hold on tight as there is not much time left. Suddenly, the fall becomes faster, and they go straight towards one of the castle walls. Desperately, the boy screams as he braces himself for the inevitable impact that is coming. He closes his eyes and realizes that the two of them are going to crash straight into the stone tower. At that moment, a huge impact occurs, raising a huge cloud of dust across the street. Soon after, the boy gets up complaining of back pain, but realizes he is fine. He then looks at his arm and wonders how his body withstood such an impact without a scratch. As he puts on his boots, a mysterious voice questions him about his identity and his strange clothes. The boy is completely shocked and wonders why just now another knight has appeared. His surprise is because of the blonde S-rank knight named Lib, who appeared right in front of him. With a serious expression on her face, the warrior orders the invader to identify himself immediately. But the boy remembers that the reason he managed to stop the 100th wave of monsters was her. Despite being S-rank, it was inefficient in defense but great for farming in dungeons and adventures. That's why he used it together with the dragon soul, because this combination was the key to victory. He remembers that in the 100th wave of the game, she was the key to victory against the monsters. Back in the present, the blonde knight demands that the intruder identify himself immediately. Then the warrior asks if the boy knows her, and he simply answers yes, saying her name. The young man claims he knows it very well, because he has played the game hundreds of times to understand its value. Without understanding, the warrior asks what he means, because she was the key to his strategy. But the protagonist reveals that now the factions have changed, and that's why she has become an obstacle. With a cold look, he concludes that the knight is the first target that needs to be eliminated. At this point, the scene changes to a dark night sky, indicating that something is going to happen. Soon, a hideous monster with red eyes appears in the darkness and lets out a terrifying roar. Seeing the creatures approaching, the castle soldiers despair and shout that they are coming. Then a horde of goblins begins to climb the castle walls without any difficulty. Seeing this, the commander orders the archers to shoot, and a rain of arrows falls on the monsters. Additionally, the soldiers throw stones to prevent the creatures from reaching the top of the wall. Even with all the efforts, the army of monsters is gigantic and surrounds the entire castle. A soldier then warns that they won't last long and asks where the commander is. At that moment, a soldier warns that Lord Ares is on his way, bringing hope to his companion. The scene returns to the blonde warrior, who demands that the boy answer about his identity. With a serious look, she threatens him, saying that if he doesn't respond, she will have to take action. The young man reflects that it would be impossible to defeat her, now as no S-rank knight could defeat her. Changing his expression, he points his finger and says he is an ordinary citizen who got lost along the way. Then a red creature appears out of nowhere behind the boy, letting out a roar, leaving him surprised. Seeing the creature, the warrior is left speechless and questions the presence of a monster inside. Embarrassed by the creatures on his shoulders, the young man laments that this is happening right now. The knight realizes that she is now suspected of complicity and that there is no turning back from the situation. With this, she concludes that her chances of winning are zero, as she has no ranged attacks. She then turns around and asks why the boy is hiding behind her if he understood the situation. The knight stands in front of the young man and reassures him that she will now protect him. The little monster lets out a confused roar and tilts its head, not understanding what is happening. This reaction from the creature leaves the boy's protector completely confused and irritated. However, the creature simply makes a cute expression with bright eyes at the warrior. With an analytical look, the boy realizes that this is the true personality of the knight called Lib. At that moment, a huge explosion occurs in one of the castle walls, scaring everyone. The young man points in shock at the destruction and realizes that this is his perfect chance to escape. At this, the little creature flies towards the smoke while someone screams about blowing up the walls. Soon after the smoke clears, the blonde knight wonders where the boy and the monster went. A soldier quickly approaches and, relieved, calls the knight by her full name, Lady Lib. However, the warrior's expression changes, and she looks worriedly towards the main gate. The large wooden gate of the fortress begins to shake violently with loud bangs. On the other side, the soldiers look at the main entrance with expressions of pure terror and fear. The blows continue with more force, and now the wooden gate begins to crack completely. The knight then orders everyone to drop their bows and prepare for hand-to-hand combat. Outside, a horde of green humanoid monsters tries to break down the gate at all costs. Leading the attack is a giant ogre with a spiked club about to deliver the final blow. Seeing the cracks in the gate, the blonde warrior and her soldiers prepare for the inevitable. Even though they were prepared, the guards' expressions couldn't hide the fear they were feeling at that moment. With one last blow, the giant ogre's thorny club completely destroys the wooden gate. With her sword shining brightly, the blonde warrior orders her soldiers to advance into battle. At that moment, one of the red-eyed monsters manages to get through the destroyed entrance and roars in fury. Immediately, the entire horde of green creatures invades the castle courtyard, outnumbering the guards. But suddenly, a man with white hair and a red cape appears in the midst of the chaos, and he introduces himself as the commander. The blonde knight is shocked to see the newcomer and then calls him Ares, wondering what he is doing there. However, the commander seems irritated by the situation and yells at the soldiers, calling them useless for failing. Then the white-haired warrior raises his staff and conjures a huge wall of flames in front of the monsters. The flames instantly consumed the green creatures, who screamed in pain as they were burned alive. With a sadistic smile on his face, he orders the monsters to dance in the fire until his mood improves. Meanwhile, from a safe place far away, the boy and the little creature watch the tide of battle change. The young man then reveals that in the past, he was the only player capable of single-handedly stopping 100 hordes of monsters. However, things are different now because the monster faction's ultimate goal is to annihilate the human faction. With that, the boy wonders if his mission now is to destroy them all before the 100 hordes reach their end. As he caresses the little creature, he thinks that if he could go back in time, this mission would not be impossible to accomplish. A raindrop falls on the red creature's nose as it looks up. The gray-haired boy holds his little companion and asks him to wait a little. There in the castle, the soldiers shout with joy because they have finally won the battle. However, the blonde knight has a serious look and says that this will be the last time. Far away, the protagonist enters the forest while a mysterious shadow watches him. He then looks at the city in the distance and reveals that he began his journey right there. But now the young man is in a dark forest in the territory of the monster faction. With a serious expression, he realizes that this path did not exist in the original game. The boy remembers restarting the game hundreds of times just to survive the 100 hordes. That's why he knows the kingdom's tactics, but now he's going to start from scratch. Suddenly he stops on a cliff because he remembered something very important. He then lifts the creature and reveals that its name is actually Rizzledrak. After that, the boy releases the little monster who flies a little away from him. At this point, the protagonist's eyes widen as he sees something completely unexpected. There were just a few hard-working ants carrying pebbles along the way. The little ants continued their work normally, carrying pebbles along the way without noticing their presence. Suddenly, one of them looks up and is completely terrified by the giants watching her. Then the protagonist and his companion observe the scene, and the boy notices that the little monster acts like a curious cat. Leaving the insects aside, the gray-haired young man sits down and thinks about what he should do next in that place. At that moment, a mission window appears right in front of him, as he had already expected it would. Main quest number 2 was for him to establish a monster faction, and the reward was a random skill. The boy then understands that he will need to personally gather and recruit the monsters to create his own faction. Thinking about the early game monsters, he remembers that goblins should appear in this region. But when he looks around, the young man realizes that there are no goblins or rabbits and wonders how he would talk to them. After all, he needs to speak their language, but a fast figure whizzes past him, interrupting his thoughts. This frightens the boy and barely has time to react to the surprise attack that came from the forest. Then a voice screams, telling the human to die as a shadowy blade advances towards him. The protagonist's eyes widen as the blow was aimed to hit him right in the face. But somehow he dodges the attack and the mysterious creature passes right by him. The swift blow only hits the ground, raising some dust and grass with the impact. Despite having dodged the protagonist, he feels a strong pressure on his neck, as if he were going to be caught. But the blow stops suddenly, and he notices that a female hand has caught the blade before it hits him. With wide eyes, the boy turns his face to see who saved him from that surprise attack. He then comes across long white hair and a female figure that appeared in front of him. The creature was actually a beast girl with animal ears and a tail, which leaves him shocked. The young man remembers the monsters he was looking for and asks if she might be a rabbit. This question makes the girl completely irritated, and her ears move in anger. She screams that she looks more like a fox, but the boy replies that he never said she was cute. The fox girl insists that she heard him say that and continues to complain to the boy non-stop. The protagonist watches her for a moment as she continues her tantrum in front of him. Then he gets an idea and realizes that she is actually an Arctic fox. The girl stops complaining immediately and remains quiet, staring at him with a surprised expression. Suddenly, other girls identical to her appear surrounding the protagonist, who is left confused. One of them approaches and says that he looks human, but has a strange monster smell. The gray-haired young man becomes tense as he is now surrounded by them, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, a system window pops up and informs you that 2 passive skills have been activated. The first is communication with monsters that allows him to understand what they say. The second ability makes him a friendly monster, attracting positive attention from creatures. The gray-haired boy finally understands why he could communicate with the fox girl. At that moment, one of the girls points at him and shouts, aggressively getting his attention. She then asks who the hell he is, while the young man tries to think of a quick answer. The protagonist is confused because his friendly monster ability should be working. But before he could respond, an arrow hits one of the fox girls by surprise. Then 3 men emerge from the forest, and one of them celebrates having hit the target. The young man watches them from afar and wonders if they are some kind of bandit faction. One of the foxes then screams angrily, saying that he knew he was only human. Looking at the injured girl on the ground, he realizes she is trapped. She accuses him of setting it all up and asks why he is going after their race. The boy tries to explain himself by saying that it was all just a big misunderstanding. Meanwhile, one of the bandits approaches and takes the rope from the trap that injured the girl. With that, the bandit pulls the rope of the trap with great force. At that moment, the fox girl is thrown upwards, while screaming furiously. One of the bandits screams with an expression of pure evil on his face. The rope then breaks, and the young fox begins to plummet towards the ground. Observing everything from afar, the protagonist is shocked by the situation. Taking advantage of the fall, the muscular man lands a powerful punch on the girl's face. With an evil smile, he seems satisfied that he hit the young woman squarely. His look shows that he will not have mercy on anyone there. But to the man's surprise, the girl manages to hold his wrist with one hand. Without wasting time, she lands a powerful kick right in the middle of the brute's chest. The force of the blow is so great that the man is shocked by the situation. With the force of the kick, the big guy is thrown far away. His companions observe the scene and one of them is shocked by what he has just seen. Even the protagonist is impressed as she knocked the man down with a single kick. Then one of the henchmen insults her by calling her a filthy mutt. The thug then insults her and then kicks her, while she is lying on the ground. From a distance, the protagonist observes everything and feels that something in that scene is not right. The fox girl endures the pain, feeling humiliated at being hunted. With his fist clenched, the boy wonders why he is getting so angry about this. Suddenly, a guy with a ponytail approaches him and asks if he's okay. The newcomer says that it could have ended much worse. He then asks what the gray-haired young man was doing there alone. At this point, the other henchman wonders if the girl is still out of her mind. Irritated by her grumbling, the man raises a club ready to attack. Seeing this, the protagonist looks furious, ready to interrupt them. But the man with the ponytail holds him back and tells him she will die if they continue. The bandit then calms down and apologizes to his group for getting upset. The protagonist sighs in relief, while the other says that his people are kind of intense. However, the guy shows an evil smile and asks if he was talking to the monster. In an instant, the man pulls out a knife and points it at the boy, who is stunned. The guy with the ponytail says that if he knew he was like the girl, everything would be easier. Before the boy could react, the man struck him in the stomach and the bloody blade fell. With his hand on the wound, the gray-haired young man asks what he meant by that. Upon seeing the scene, the fox girl is shocked and doesn't understand what is happening. Suddenly, the protagonist feels his entire body burning from the inside out. Then the man tells him to relax, as he had avoided the vital points on purpose. He goes on to say that the poison on the blade will finish the young man off in 12 hours. Then the bandit shows a vial saying it is the antidote, and that he will only give it to him if he helps. Meanwhile, one of the henchmen grabs the girl's head very tightly. The group leader asks her where her tribe lives. Even though she is being held, the girl remains silent as they talk about the fox den. Wounded, our hero is surprised to hear about this place. Hidden among the trees, a small red creature observes the whole situation. In great pain, the gray-haired boy asks what this fox den might be. The man explains that it is a village of beastmen, and that if he helps find it, he will live. The gray-haired young man then understands what the villain wants, but wonders why the village. Meanwhile, the fox girl knows that taking them there will put everyone in danger. Determined, she opens her mouth and tries to bite her tongue so as not to reveal anything. Seeing the scene, our hero is shocked by the girl's desperate attempt. But the henchman reacts quickly and stops her from biting her tongue and ends up being bitten. At that moment, the boy understands that she was trying to sacrifice herself to protect the village. Even though she was injured, the girl stared at her attacker with hatred, as he called her a wild beast. Then the leader of the group says that all the beastmen they catch end up dying within a day. Approaching the fox girl, the leader of the bandits decides to extract the information himself. He holds her tightly, and she screams in pain at the man's sudden grip. He comments on how beastmen don't value their own lives to protect others. The bandit tells his henchmen to stay behind, as there may be others nearby. Turning to the boy, the villain says he wants to make a deal, and the hero notices his attitude change. Just then, one of the henchmen sees the red creature in the air, and wonders when it appeared there. With eyes glowing red, the small creature looks ready to attack the group of bandits. One of the henchmen then yells at his boss to be careful while the girl tries to warn him to swerve. But our hero knows it's already too late for the villain to react in time. Then the little creature uses its dragon breath to attack the bandits. With that, a ray of energy hits the leader's neck, who begs for his life. The small creature floats in the air after its quick and accurate attack on the enemy. Seeing the scene, the protagonist is shocked and ends up spitting out some blood. The other two henchmen look at what happened, completely terrified. Meanwhile, the little red animal screams furiously at the remaining bandits. The gray-haired boy realizes that the skill's cooldown hasn't ended yet. Immediately, the creature launches another attack that explodes on the ground near the villains. They notice that the grass has melted and that this wasn't even a full-force attack. Out of fear, one of the henchmen grabs his gun and laments that he hasn't even gotten married yet. The other bandit gets angry and calls the creature a fly as he prepares to attack. Seeing that, our hero is left wide-eyed, not knowing what to do, but the little animal easily dodges the blow of the henchman, who brushes past him. The small red creature falls to the ground completely knocked out after the blow. With that, the bandit becomes furious and curses the animal for almost hitting his head. His partner suggests they capture the little monster, as it could be worth a lot of money, but our hero looks down and says in a cold voice that he doesn't need that. Then the leader of the villains orders his henchmen to watch the boy and the girl. He says he will take care of the creature himself, as he prepares to finish it off. Seeing that, the protagonist wonders if he can survive just by being able to talk to monsters. In this, he remembers a time in the past when he was bullied by a group of people. The boy remembers how he always had to survive in a pathetic way, and how someone in his life told him he was completely useless. Even knowing what would happen, he continued to follow that path. Back in the present, the young man decides he doesn't want to regret losing anything else. At that exact moment, the villain raises his club to crush the little creature. The white-haired girl looks back and sees the protagonist with a scared expression. With a determined face, the hero reflects that the truly useless one there is not him. Suddenly, a system window shows that a passive skill has been activated. The skill is called Physical Monster and grants the young man strength that transcends human strength. Then the antagonist completes the boy's thought by saying that he is the truly useless one. But in the blink of an eye, the hero jumps towards the bandit with absurd strength. The villain throws a potion on the ground, but our protagonist crushes it with his fist. With that, the white-haired girl is shocked to witness the boy's power. The leader's henchmen also don't believe what they are seeing, and are very scared. The protagonist lands a punch so hard that the enemy's face is completely deformed. After the blow, the young man remains standing amidst the dust that rose up at the scene. Seeing the scene, the other bandits panic and run far away from there. Then the girl remembers that he was dying because of a poisoned blade, so she wonders how he's moving like that with so much power. Our hero ignores everything and kneels on the ground to pick up the small, injured creature. He holds the little monster, who wonders why the boy came to save him, even though he was injured. The red creature then rubs itself against his chest as a way of thanking him. Looking at the little monster, the young man remembers a friend who made him smile. He remembers a kitten that was always by his side, giving him strength. At that time, the protagonist was very lonely, and his only friend was the little feline. Back in the present, the little creature decides that he will protect him from all harm. Then the boy smiles and swears to the little monster that he will protect him no matter the cost. In an instant of silent fury, a single thought fills the young man's mind, directed toward an unknown enemy. He is kneeling on the ground in front of a group of thugs who threaten him about their boss, warning him that everyone will die if he finds out. The boy raises his gaze with a thread of blood on his lip and eyes burning in a cold challenge. Despite having everything against him, his intense gaze unsettles the aggressors, and their tough attitude quickly crumbles, turning into fear and confusion. After one last threat through stammering, they turn around and leave, leaving the young man alone with a small winged creature. The little red creature lets out an adorable roar, puffing its chest with pride once the enemies have gone. As the young man struggles to stand, a dark aura envelops him, showing the immense power he just used. But suddenly, his strength abandons him, and he collapses. Nearby, a white-haired woman with fox ears watches the scene. She observes with a surprised expression, as she did not expect the young man to collapse so suddenly after that display of power. Now unconscious, he is surrounded by 3 of the little red creatures, who gently push him, trying to wake him. Lying on the ground, he begins to lose consciousness, wondering if this is how his journey ends. His last thoughts are filled with worry about what will happen if he dies there, while a restless creature watches him. As everything fades into darkness, a memory of his mother appears in his mind. He remembers himself as a child, sitting helplessly beside his mother's hospital bed, keeping vigil over her, shrinking from grief and anger. The child thinks about the person responsible for her condition. At the end of his memory, the young man recalls his rage, thinking that the person responsible never appeared. Suddenly, his eyes open wide as consciousness slowly returns to him. He finds himself in a dark and unknown place inside a cave and wonders where he is. A white-haired girl with fox ears holds him and tells him that he should not move yet. She takes him out of the dark cave with a torch while he wonders why she saved him. Upon leaving the cave, a voice shouts that Ria has returned and announces that she brings with her a human. A crowd of people with rabbit ears gathers, commenting that he looks like a human. 2 girls from the tribe feel that something in him is strange, but one of them admits that for some reason she likes him. Inside a hut, the young man rests while the tribe watches him, wondering when he will wake up. He is already awake, but he feels too self-conscious to get up with so many people staring at him. Then someone appears and asks everyone to give the guest a little space so he can rest. Someone asks if it's true that a human saved her, but Ria replies that the questions can wait. Still lying down, the young man hears that new voice and finds it strangely familiar. An older woman with an air of nobility approaches, correctly noticing that he is already awake. She asks him to excuse everyone's curiosity, explaining that although he looks human, he is different. The woman explains that although he looks human, he doesn't smell like one, which leaves him confused about his own identity. Suddenly, he realizes something. Looking at his hands, he notices that the effects of the poison in his body have completely disappeared. Ria turns around and tells him that luckily they had an antidote in the village. Then the boy asks her about that place. A serious expression draws on the boy's face, as a dark and worrying thought appears in his mind. He remembers the danger she faced, and fears that by bringing him to the village, everyone may end up in danger too. The girl shows her sharp fangs, revealing a much wilder nature than her appearance initially suggested. The young man remembers the distrust he felt, wondering why she helped him if she seemed so wary of him. He confronts her directly and asks why she saved him. Ria responds that it was simply for being a human. She adds that despite that, he doesn't have the smell of one. However, the boy doesn't seem convinced. The white-haired girl hesitates for a moment, and her gaze gets lost in the distance before continuing the explanation. She remembers the scene in which she found him kneeling on the ground while protecting the little red creature. He reflects on having been saved and thinks out loud. If that's the effect of being a sympathetic monster. Annoyed by his murmurs, Ria scolds him for being so talkative and annoying, even after she saved him. Beside them, the little red creature lets out a cute roar, as if agreeing with the scolding. The young man looks at his little companion and with a faint smile sincerely thanks both of them for the help. The young man, a little embarrassed, tells her that there's no need to go so far to thank her. Ria clears her throat, a little uncomfortable, and says that he also saved her, so they're even. Then he smiles and suggests that if she really is grateful, there is something she can do. While she hears the creature's roar, suddenly the little red creature Rizal Doctor jumps toward the boy as he calls it by its name. The young man laughs, saying it tickles him, while Raya watches the scene, surprised to hear the creature's name. At that moment, she realizes they haven't introduced themselves yet, and suggests that since fate brought them together, they should do it. Before she can say her name, a girl with rabbit ears comes running in, calling for Raya. The messenger says that the village chief is looking for her, and that he asked her to bring the guest with her. They leave the hut, and under the blue sky, the landscape of a large village among the mountains is revealed. The boy looks around in awe, realizing he is in the Beastmen's village, a place called Bar. She explains that the village was built by rabbit beastmen, but now it welcomes all who have lost their homes. As they walk, a villager asks about Raya's leg, to which she replies that it's fine, although she seems a little sad. A beastman with a horn approaches them, scolding her for going again to the forest of the humans. She promises to be more careful. The imposing beastman watches as both walk away, his face marked by a serious and watchful expression. The boy comments that everyone in the village seems to care a lot about her, and Raya nods softly. He asks Raya what's wrong. Noticing she seems down, the girl tells him he's right to ask. Suddenly, she yells at him, completely catching the boy off guard with her mood swing. Irritated, she asks if his name is Hay, and the boy is left confused by her sudden outburst. With her hands on her hips, Raya looks at him with an angry expression, clearly expecting an answer. The boy, a bit baffled by her anger, stammers a reply before pulling himself together. He introduces himself as King Heian. The girl comments that it's quite an unusual name around there. Then she reveals her full name, Ryer Rindrian Perdit, and Cecilia Gion is left totally perplexed. At that moment, a rabbit villager approaches to ask if Raya's leg is okay, and she turns to answer. She cheerfully responds that her leg was treated and is better. John thinks her name is peculiar. He observes her, thinking she suddenly seems cheered up, and assumes she just wanted to say her name. Then the boy looks at the sky, and his expression becomes serious as he reflects on his situation. A system window appears, showing his main mission to unite the monsters and build a faction. Raya calls him, saying they must go see the village chief. He nods, snapping out of his thoughts, wondering why she asked for his name if she was going to keep calling him Hey. As she walks ahead and he follows, he keeps thinking about the mission to unite the monsters and build a faction. He wonders if he's capable of such a feat, and the village chief smiles, saying he leaves the village in his hands. The sudden statement leaves both Jian and Rhea completely shocked and speechless. Desperate, the girl shouts to the chief to wait a moment, trying to stop the decision. The old man explains that he's already very old, but Rhea replies that the boy knows nothing about the village. She continues questioning the madness of handing the village over to a stranger for a dream, but the chief has already decided. As the leader walks away, Rhea refuses to accept the situation, pleading with him to reconsider. He remains silent, processing the enormous responsibility just placed on him. The scene moves slightly back in time to the conversation they had, where the chief explained to him about his dreams. He had said that his peculiar dreams always come true, and that Jian is the only one who can save the village. The boy understands that this is related to his main mission of uniting the monsters and creating a faction. He reflects that if the village needs to be saved, it means some danger is approaching. A memory of the thugs arises, mentioning that their boss lost something and that the lives of the beastmen depended on it. With this information, Jian's eyes open wide as he suddenly understands. He quickly turns and calls Rhea, who asks him what happened. With a serious expression, he asks if she was followed when she returned to the village. Rhea explains that Baron is a village hidden behind a rocky mountain and that it has never been discovered until now. She continues saying that the reason is that behind the mountain there is a vast ocean, so no one would dare cross it. However, she reveals that there is only one way to enter Baron without having to cross the mountain. The girl explains that the alternative route is the tunnels dug by the rabbit people of the village. She adds that even if someone were to find the tunnels, the interior has a complex structure, like a maze. The underground passages branch out into a confusing network, making navigation extremely difficult. Because of this natural defense, finding the right path that leads to Baron is considered almost impossible. Hiran says he didn't notice anything strange when leaving the tunnel. Rhea seems relieved but still has a worried expression. The boy still feels a strange unease, wondering what the cause might be as he looks at her leg. Nearby, a small stain of fresh blood dirties the rocky ground, going unnoticed by them. Hidden, a sinister figure with a wicked smile touches the cave wall, letting out a low and threatening laugh. The figure steps out of the cave's shadow, watching the village from a distance, and declares that he has found them. The young man tells the fox-eared girl he felt nothing strange when passing through the tunnel. She finds this fortunate, but seems to have other concerns. An uneasy feeling lingers for him as he glances at her bandaged leg, wondering what the source of his discomfort could be. Meanwhile, back inside the tunnel they just left, a small patch of blood stains the rocky ground where she was injured. A sinister figure with a mocking laugh touches the cave wall, having apparently followed the trail right to its source. He dashes out of the cave entrance, spotting a small village in the distance, and triumphantly declares that he has found it. His shout echoes across the valley as he alerts his companions that a human has been located inside the territory of Warren. The sudden alarm catches the attention of the young man and his companion, who turn around in surprise as the warning spreads. A large minotaur shouts at a captured man on the ground, who sweats nervously, unable to understand what is being said. As the pair arrives, surrounded by beastmen, the hero tells the fox girl that the intruder likely followed the trail from her wounds. His companion is shocked to hear this, insisting that she was careful and remained aware of her surroundings the entire time. She apologizes to the assembled villagers for her mistake, but the large minotaur tells her there is no need to blame herself. He reasons it must have been difficult for her to carry someone while injured, and they have already captured the man who followed her. Several bunny-eared villagers also gather around to comfort her, reassuring her that it is not her fault. The young man suddenly has a realization. He recalls there were 3 bandits and asks what happened to the other 2. The captured intruder on the ground smirks at them, taunting that their home will soon be engulfed in a sea of flames. The The captured bandit grins madly, revealing his group is so feared that even the kingdom avoids them. He names their boss as Scream Spike. He continues his threat, declaring that his leader will soon arrive with 200 men to storm the village and destroy everything. The hero hears the name Scream Spike and quietly repeats it, a look of concern crossing his face as he processes the information. The scene shifts to a flashback where two other bandits from the group walk through a dark cave, one supporting his injured companion. The injured man, his face bruised and bleeding, weakly calls out to his boss as he stumbles forward. He then pleads with a shadowy figure, their leader, to get revenge on the person who attacked him. The imposing figure, their boss, remains silent for a moment, listening to his subordinate's request without a word. The bandit then excitedly proclaims that he has found the secret tunnel the fox people use and offers to lead the way. Their leader, a formidable man seated on a stone throne, chuckles and commends his underling for a job well done. With a sinister smirk, the boss announces that their group will head to the fox tunnel right away. The subordinate who discovered the passage grins with satisfaction, clearly proud of his contribution to their plan. Back in the present, the captured man continues his taunts, stating he is not the only one who made it there as part of his leader's plan. In another flashback, one bandit chases after his injured brother through the woods, begging him to stop and get treatment. But the injured man stubbornly refuses, turning around to declare that it is not yet time to return to their hideout. The scene shows the fox girl standing over a strange, defeated creature, revealing a glimpse of her previous battle. The captured bandit continues his taunts, declaring that everyone in the village is as good as dead. His companion looks shocked by the threat, unable to process what the man is saying. She turns to the hero, Jihoon, calling his name with a worried expression on her face. He confirms their fears, stating that the bandit group has discovered the village and will likely attack soon. The girl's eyes widen in terror as she realizes the grave danger they are all in. Meanwhile, Jihoon murmurs the name Scream Spike, noting that it sounds familiar, and he is starting to remember it. He recalls the game Night Defense, where knights gained experience and grew stronger by blocking monsters that attacked the kingdom. However, he remembers that this growth alone was not enough to defend against the endless waves of enemies. To address this, the game had another system called Adventure, which offered a different way to progress. The Adventure system allowed players to select a party of knights and send them to challenge various stages for rewards. Upon clearing these stages, players received items and gold that could further strengthen their forces. He recalls the game's world map, starting from the first stage, which was named Wild Goblin Remnants. The map extended all the way to the final level, 10 to 10, the Demon Lord's sacred ground, totaling 100 stages. Back in his own world, Jihoon thinks about the game, admitting he does not remember the names of every stage. But he does vaguely remember the name of stage 1 to 10, the final stage of the game's first chapter. He finally remembers that the final stage of chapter 1 was the Scream Spike Band hideout, a village hidden behind a stone mountain. Jihoon recalls that every adventure stage in the game had a backstory, and this one described a hideout for cruel bandits led by Scream Spike. He realizes with concern that in the entire game, there was no stage with the name Warren, meaning this place was never mentioned. According to the game's original storyline, this village is fated to be discovered and completely destroyed by the bandits. The captured bandit smirks at the terrified villagers, offering them a chance to be spared. He begs someone to free him, promising he will ask his boss to spare the life of whoever helps him. Jihoon knows that even if the beast folk do not understand his words, the terror in his voice is spreading through the crowd. The villagers look around nervously, feeling that something is terribly wrong as fear begins to take hold. The fox girl blames herself, thinking that her mistake will cause the destruction of her village and everyone in it. The Minotaur glares at the captive, enraged by his words. He asks if the bandit expects them to simply untie him. Jihoon looks down, his face shadowed with determination, resolving that he cannot allow that to happen. The bandit points at the approaching hero, shouting at the villagers and asking if they all want to die. Jihoon calmly tells the bandit he is lucky. He declares, Warren will be the stronghold of a new monster faction he will create. The young man clenches his fist, his expression serious, as he prepares to make his point clear. He swiftly strikes the bandit, declaring that this village is going to be his new base. The Minotaur looks on, sweating slightly as he watches the human's sudden and decisive action. The nearby bunny-eared villagers gasp in unison, their faces filled with disbelief at what just happened. His companion covers her mouth in astonishment, whispering his name in surprise. Jihoon stands over the unconscious bandit, stating that he has no need for any more pointless words. He then turns to the crowd with a determined expression, declaring it is time to fight. The fox girl's expression shifts from shock to resolve as she agrees they will protect Warren together. But the large Minotaur disagrees, stating that protecting the village is impossible for them. He asks the young man to look around, explaining they built their village in hiding for a reason. He points out that most of their people are women and children who have never properly fought before, let alone against armed humans. An elder village chief approaches the fox girl, acknowledging Jihoon's dream, but doubting their ability to win. With everyone's attention on her, she decides to make an official announcement to the gathered villagers. She declares that from this day forward, Jihoon will be the new village chief leading Warren. Meanwhile, the other bandits from Scream Spike's group are on the move, marching steadily towards their target. One of the bandits points ahead, guiding his boss, Scream Spike, directly toward the hidden location. The bandit leader spots the village behind the mountains, declaring that they will take the place for themselves. The bandit leader, Scream Spike, declares he will make the village his new hideout and orders his men to move forward. A horde of ruthless bandits charges through the forest, ready to bring a massacre to the unsuspecting village. The advancing group is an intimidating force, armed with crude weapons and wearing terrifying skull masks. Back in Warren, the Minotaur explains the grave situation to Jihoon, estimating the enemy's strength at about 200 men. He begins to tally their own forces, starting with the 3 bull beast folk, which includes himself. He continues the count, adding the 2 deer beast folk to their small defensive force. Next on the list are the 5 sheep beast folk, who look visibly nervous about the impending fight. The Minotaur then adds the single fox beast folk, Rhea, to their total number of fighters. Finally, he counts the largest group among them, which consists of 101 rabbit beast folk. This brings their total defensive force to only 112, a stark contrast to the enemy's numbers. Jihoon acknowledges they face an enemy twice their size and quietly questions their chances of winning, but he knows this is not a normal war. He thinks what truly matters is not numbers, but individual strength like rank and level. He remembers that Rhea was strong enough to defeat a bandit in one hit, even when she was ambushed. The hero estimates she could likely win a 2-on-1 fight, though a 3-on-1 battle might be too difficult. He recalls the Minotaur saying the beast folk had never fought properly, which makes him consider their untapped potential. He realizes they might have a hidden power called beastification, seeing them as unscratched lottery tickets with underestimated potential. Jihoon clenches his fist confidently, thinking that if everyone had combat power like Rhea's, they could overcome their numerical disadvantage. He approaches the Minotaur, who introduces himself as Tar Brimmock, and asks him just how strong Rhea is compared to the rest of Warren. As Tar considers the question, the young hero smiles, thinking the game would not give him an impossible starting mission. Tar begins to explain his answer while in the background. Rhea can be seen playing with the small red creature she defeated earlier. The Minotaur states that Rhea is, without a doubt, Warren's greatest warrior, which leaves Jihoon looking slightly confused. He continues by explaining that even if all the other villagers, including the numerous rabbit folk, were to attack at once, their combined strength still would not be enough to be a match for Rhea, revealing a huge power gap between her and everyone else. Jihoon looks down, his face shadowed as he begins to understand the grim reality of the village's fighting capability. His expression becomes deadpan as he realizes this means that in terms of combat, everyone else in the village is completely useless. Tar then estimates the bandits will likely arrive at the cave entrance around sunset, giving them a little more time to prepare. Rhea turns to Jihoon, asking how he knew their arrival time. to which he simply replies that he asked. She looks over at the tied-up bandit and realizes that he must have interrogated their prisoner to get the information. The hero then recalls the bandit mentioning they were looking for something their boss had lost, and he begins to ponder. He asks Ria if she has any idea what the human boss's precious item might be, speculating about heirlooms or hidden resources. Jae-hoon listens intently, his expression serious as he tries to formulate a plan to defend the village. He knows that to overcome their numerical disadvantage, their individual stats must be high, just like in a game. Tar had already stated that Ria is the strongest warrior in all of Warren, but Jae-hoon needs to know the exact power gap. The Minotaur also claimed that all 111 other beast folk could not beat Ria, even if they attacked her together. He looks at the large crowd of rabbit folk, wondering if Ria could truly handle that many opponents on her own. The hero struggles to grasp their true strength, wishing he could see their grades and stats to get a clearer idea. The word stats suddenly triggers a memory, and his eyes widen as a crucial realization dawns on him. He remembers his passive skill, Ruler's Eye, which gives him the ability to check the stats of monsters and items. Now he just needs to recall how to use it, thinking about how players normally access status windows in games. He remembers that simply saying the word status is often enough to bring up the desired information window. Putting his theory to the test, the young man dramatically stretches out his hand and shouts the command, but nothing happens, and Ria just stares at him in confused silence as he holds the awkward pose. He sweats nervously, realizing that did not work. He then remembers another command that opens the inventory. This time, a sinister red window begins to materialize in front of him, confirming his memory was correct. A large system window labeled Abyssalot appears. As he expected, his inventory is completely empty. He notes the inventory is called Abyssalot, figuring it must be the monster faction's version of an abyss storage. The young man then realizes that in the rush of events after escaping the palace, he completely forgot about something important. A flashback shows a powerful, glowing red sword, and he remembers the weapon he was given. He recalls the scene of the collapsing throne room, realizing with a start that he left the sword behind in the rubble. Back in the present, he is frustrated with himself for not putting the valuable weapon into his inventory when he had the chance. He knows he cannot go back into the kingdom to retrieve it now, and accepts that there is nothing he can do about it. But that still leaves his current problem. He wonders why the stat window will not open, and if there is another method. The hero mentally reviews his 4 passive skills, the first being Ruler's Eye, which lets him check stats. The next skill is Communication Monster, which allows him to understand and speak with the beast folk. His third ability is Likeable Monster, a passive skill that makes other monsters feel a sense of favor towards him. Finally, he has Physical Monster, which grants him strength beyond that of a normal human. Most skills seem constantly active. Ria interrupts his thoughts, shouting impatiently that he needs to hurry up as the enemies are getting closer. She then bows her head, asking for instructions and feeling that the current situation is her fault. His companion tells him she wants to protect Warren and all of the villagers, looking to him for a plan. Jae-hoon looks at her seriously, agreeing that time is urgent and they need to act now. He decides there is no need to obsess over opening a window. His eye glows as he realizes how to check their stats. His Ruler's Eye skill activates, automatically designating his companion Ria as the target for a stat check. A large red data window materializes between them, causing Ria to look on in confusion as Jae-hoon starts to understand. He reasons the inventory is a system function for his own items, so it opened just by thinking about it. However, Ruler's Eye is a skill used to check the stats of others. He realizes the method was simple all along. To use the skill, he just needs to designate a target and focus on checking their stats, which is why it is named Ruler's Eye. Looking at the data, he sees that Ria is a B-rank warrior at level 5, her full name being Ria Lindrian Pernati Celiard. Jae-hoon is surprised. B-rank is the same grade as a middle-class knight in the game, a much higher level than he thought. Her stats show she is a water attribute melee type focused on attack power. Her hidden skill is indeed beastification. Ria tries to talk to him about his new burden as village chief, but she notices he seems distracted and asks if he is listening. While she continues talking, he notices a heart icon with the number 40 next to it on her stat sheet and wonders what it means. As she pledges to do her best to help him, his finger seems to move on its own, pressing down on the heart icon. The number suddenly drops from 40 to 35, and he wonders why the value went down. He then realizes his finger is not on a screen. He is actually poking a very angry Ria right on the nose. She fumes, questioning his fitness as chief. The young man nervously insists that he did not do it on purpose. Still enraged, Ria lashes out, screaming that she cannot accept his behavior. She swings her hand with a powerful swipe, a sharp sound echoing through the air as she vents her frustration. Ignoring his new title as chief, she fumes while the young man turns to the Minotaur and calmly gives an order. With fresh scratch marks on his face, Jae-hoon nervously assures everyone he is fine after the outburst. He then begins the long process of checking every villager's stats, calling them forward one by one. A small sheep beast folk nervously tells the new chief that he is the last one in line to be checked. The hero sighs in exhaustion, realizing that checking the stats of over 100 people is incredibly draining. He now knows Warren's total population is 114, and among them, the highest rank belongs to an unexpected member. Jae-hoon uses his ruler's eye on the small, sleeping red creature, identifying it as Ruzzledrake. The creature is an S-rank monster, but its stats are focused entirely on magic attack and magic defense. Its special skill, Dragon Breath, is extremely powerful but consumes all of its MP in a single shot. He calculates that since only half its MP has recovered in a day, the skill cannot be used in the battle. The forces he can rely on are B-rank Ria and C-rank Tar, who is a level 5 defense-focused warrior. Unfortunately, the rest of the villagers are mostly E-rank, a very low power level. This new information makes it clear why no one could beat Ria, since E-rank is below even an apprentice knight. He recalls that the Scream Spike hideout was a C-rank difficulty stage in the game, giving him a baseline for the bandits' strength. After checking everyone's ranks, the young man now has a much clearer understanding of their grim situation. In terms of troop numbers, they are at a significant disadvantage, pitting their 114 villagers against 200 bandits. When it comes to the quality of their forces, the villagers are mostly inexperienced and far weaker than the enemy. The bandits are also better equipped with weapons and armor, another area where the villagers are lacking. He clenches his fist, realizing that at this rate, protecting Warren is nearly impossible. But his expression hardens with resolve. He knows this is not a game, but reality itself. In this world, many variables exist that cannot be simply quantified like in a game system. Looking towards the entrance, he decides he will create those variables himself to shift the odds. The new chief turns to his strongest warriors, Tar and Ria, preparing to explain his strategy. Meanwhile, the large force of Scream Spike bandits continues its march through the forest path. The ruthless group advances without pause, their intentions clear as they move toward the hidden village. Hidden nearby, 2 rabbit-eared scouts spot the approaching horde and gasp as they realize the enemy has arrived. They agree they must hurry back to the village and inform their new chief about the imminent attack. One of the scouts sprints away, knowing there is little time before the bandits reach the entrance. Before she can escape, however, her eyes widen in terror as she finds her path blocked. Scream Spike grins, questioning how they already know his forces are coming. The bandit leader reaches out and grabs the terrified scout, who is now covered in blood. She grits her teeth in pain and determination as the other scout shouts at her to run away. The second scout flees, and another bandit orders his men to catch the escaping villagers. But Scream Spike raises a hand to stop them, much to his subordinate's surprise. The underling asks his boss why he is just letting them go. The bandit leader smirks, revealing that he is not just letting them go, he is infecting them. Back at the village, Jae-hoon directs his teams, sending them to their designated positions to prepare for the attack. The surviving scout sprints back toward the cave entrance, rushing to deliver her urgent message. The new village chief looks back toward the cave entrance, his expression serious as he awaits the news. A blur of motion announces the scout's arrival, and everyone turns as she says the enemy is here. Tar looks on with a grim expression as the scout confirms the humans have arrived. Ria asks about the rain, then notices the blood covering the scout and demands to know what happened. The injured scout stumbles forward, panting as she warns them about the approaching humans. The scout finally makes it inside, shouting that the humans are right behind her at the entrance. Jae-hoon's hand trembles slightly, a sign of the tension building as the moment of truth arrives. He clenches his fist, remembering he was the only player to block 100 waves. This is the monster faction's very first defense. His gaze hardens with absolute determination, ready to face the enemy and protect his new home. Having laid out his strategy, the new chief waits with his villagers, all of them staring towards the cave entrance in tense silence. Outside, the large force of Scream Spike bandits approaches the hidden village, their figures silhouetted against the wide cave opening. The bandit leader asks his subordinate if this is the fox's den. The man confirms they have scouted the route and that dragging it out would be a waste of time. Standing before his men, Scream Spike orders them to finish the raid before sunset, and the large group lets out a unified battle cry. From the shadows of the cave, Rhea watches the horde gather, her voice low as she informs June that the enemy is finally here. The young man stands beside her, his expression grim as he wonders if their plan will succeed, knowing the beginning of the operation is crucial. The bandits march forward, their heavy boots kicking up dust as they move deeper into the path leading to the village. One of the men reports to his boss that at their current pace they will reach the village itself in about 30 minutes. The bandit leader notes how quiet the area is. One of his men laughs, assuming the beast folk are hiding and trembling in fear. Recalling his previous encounter, the boss vows to personally deal with the one who punched him as they continue their advance. A heavy boot stomps down on the rocky ground, but the bandit suddenly freezes in place. The man with the bandaged cheek looks down with a confused expression, telling his comrades he hears a strange sound coming from the ground. Suddenly, the ground beneath the entire horde begins to shake violently, cracks spreading rapidly across the stone floor. The bandit's eyes widen in terror, realizing the danger too late as he tries to warn the others. He screams for everyone to dodge, but chaos erupts as the ground gives way, sending the bandits tumbling into a hidden pitfall. The bandit with the bandaged cheek screams in terror as the ground crumbles beneath him, dust and debris flying everywhere. Just as he is about to fall, Scream Spike grabs him by the collar, pulling him to safety while the other bandits watch in shock. Down in the pit, the fallen men cry out in pain from broken arms and legs, surrounded by the shattered planks and rocks of the trap. Safely on solid ground, the bandit points at the chaos below, informing his boss that the villagers deliberately set traps for them. The bandit leader's eyes narrow with cold fury as he assesses the situation, his expression hardening. June's plan was simple but effective, a classic pitfall made by digging a deep hole and covering it with weak planks, dirt, and rocks. A diagram shows the design, where a central pillar supports the planks, ready to give way under a significant amount of weight. As soon as enough bandits stepped onto the covered area, the support pillar collapsed, sending them all falling into the pit. The man with the bandaged cheek tells his comrade that there were no traps like this when they scouted the area the day before. The remaining bandits look ahead nervously, realizing that the path forward could be filled with more hidden dangers. One of them steps forward to caution his boss, warning that moving recklessly would be too dangerous with more traps possibly ahead. But Scream Spike furiously calls them idiots, shocking his subordinates into silence with his sudden outburst. Ignoring their warnings, the leader reaches into the pit and lifts a massive boulder with a single hand, showing his incredible strength. He effortlessly tosses the huge rock aside, clearing a path and demonstrating that such simple traps are meaningless to him. As the boulder crashes down, he scoffs at the very idea of traps, wondering how the villagers could have possibly known where to place them. Scream Spike reasons that since the cave was artificially dug into a stony mountain, the original floor was solid rock. He explains that even with pits covered by wood, dirt, and rocks, the difference in the ground's appearance can be spotted if one looks closely. His subordinates look on as the bandit with the bandaged cheek realizes what his boss means. The leader points out that the areas with more gravel are where the traps are hidden, scoffing at the villagers' primitive tricks. He smirks, thinking that while carnivores might be fooled, these traps only prove the weakness of the herbivore demi-humans. The bandit chief orders some men to stay and rescue the fallen, while the rest advance cautiously. Now aware of how to spot the traps, watching from a hidden alcove, Rhea grows worried, telling June that the bandits have figured out their traps and will soon break through. But the young chief smirks, confirming that everything is going just as planned, leaving his companion utterly confused. He explains that digging through solid rock would have taken the villagers far too long. Even with their enhanced strength, perfectly concealing the holes was impossible in such a short time. So he knew the rushed traps would only work once. The strategist reveals that there are only 2 deep pit traps. The rest of them are all fakes. The bandits now move slowly, carefully avoiding the gravel patches, buying time for the next phase of the chief's plan. June tells Ria that by making the bandits wary, their march speed has been cut by more than half, and it's time to move to their next position. As they leave, the scene shifts to the cliff face high above the cave entrance, where all seems quiet. Suddenly, large cracks spread across the rock wall. As the bandits cautiously advance, a sudden voice echoes through the cavern. Startling the men, the voice instructs them that at the fork ahead, they should take the right path to reach their destination. The bandit leader stops, his expression growing suspicious as he questions the existence of a fork in the road. Soon they arrive not at a fork, but at a dead end with 3 separate tunnels, leaving the bandits confused by the false directions. The men begin to argue, unable to agree on the correct path, with some recalling weeds on the left and others insisting it was the right. Screamspike declares that such flimsy traps and illusions are not enough to stop them from advancing. A slight smirk appears on his face as he realizes the purpose of the cave's layout was simply to buy time. He deduces the villagers must be preparing something, and they cannot afford to give them any more time. The leader decides to split his forces into 3 groups to advance quickly, starting with assigning the left tunnel. He orders his brother, a man named Crane, to take his group down the leftmost path. The middle tunnel is assigned to a large, muscular man named Dump and his team. The bandit chief announces he will take the right path himself, and the 3 groups proceed into the darkness. However, Crane's group is quickly submerged in water as their path leads them into an unexpected flood. They soon discover their path is blocked by a rock slide, forcing the frustrated bandits to turn back. Meanwhile, in the middle tunnel, one of Dump's men shouts that he sees light ahead, signaling they've found an exit. Confident they have found the exit, Dump hoists his massive hammer and orders his men to prepare for the coming battle. At the same time, a subordinate in Screamspike's group points ahead, excitedly informing his boss that they too have found the cave's exit. The bandit leader smirks, pleased to think his path was the correct one, and mocking the poor luck of the other groups. Facing his men, he orders them to show no mercy, commanding them to kill every villager they find without hesitation. With a unified roar, Dump's group charges out of the tunnel, ready to begin their assault on the village. Screamspike's men also rush forward, their weapons raised as they surge out of the darkness and into the light. But as they emerge, the bandit chief freezes, his smug expression replaced with one of shock and utter confusion. His group finds themselves standing at the edge of a forest, realizing they have been led completely astray from their target. It becomes clear that both tunnels were decoys, leading the 2 groups out of the mountain far from the hidden village. However, from their position, Dump's group spots the village in the distance. He shouts for his men to hold their position. He immediately orders one of his men to return to the fork and inform the boss and vice-boss that they have located the village. Before the scout can depart, another bandit points towards a nearby tree, telling his brother to look at what he has found. To their shock, they see their captured comrade, the man they called Cargo, tied securely to a tree and gagged. As his men look on, Dump realizes they have walked into yet another trap and curses the monster villagers. He rushes to his captive comrade's side, but the gagged man frantically tries to warn him about the boss and vice-boss. Looking at his captive comrade, Dump wonders why their forces have been reduced to so few men. Meanwhile, the scout he dispatched is rushing back through the dark cave, trying to deliver his urgent message. He suddenly stops in his tracks, looking up in shock as a weapon swings down at him from the shadows. A cloud of dust erupts as Ria lands a powerful blow, with the young chief watching from just behind her. The scout lies defeated in a crater. His mission failed. June knows they cannot reveal their full plan just yet. He and Ria stand together, their expressions firm, knowing this numerical advantage was hard-won. Their plan involved using fake traps to buy time, while altering the terrain to confuse the invaders. These crude deceptions were designed to make the enemy underestimate them and ultimately split their forces. The captured bandit frantically tries to explain to Dump that splitting their forces against only 60 villagers was a grave error. Dump looks out with dawning horror, realizing they are not the attackers but are the ones who have been completely surrounded. Rabbit folk emerge from the surrounding forest, revealing the bandits are now outnumbered nearly 2 to 1. At that moment, June and Ria step out from a hidden cave entrance, ready to join the fray. The new chief looks over the battlefield, his expression hardened as he prepares to give the final order. He yells for all units to charge, and the villagers surge forward to overwhelm the cornered bandits. With a confident smirk, the young man declares that his real strategy is only just beginning. Enraged and cornered, Dump roars for his men to kill them all, leading the charge with his hammer raised. The large bandit barrels towards a single small rabbit warrior, determined to crush the opposition head-on. He swings his massive weapon down with overwhelming force, aiming to obliterate the tiny villager in a single blow. But at that exact moment, the new chief shouts his command, ordering all units to undergo their beast transformation. Dump's hammer slams into the ground, but the rabbit folk vanishes in a puff of smoke, leaving the bandit striking empty air. The commander stares in shock at where the warrior stood, wondering how all the villagers suddenly disappeared. The chief had anticipated this, recalling that when beast folk transform, they naturally produce a large amount of smoke. During his planning, he realized that by utilizing this effect during battle, they could create a tactical smoke screen. The battlefield is now shrouded in thick smoke, leaving the bandits disoriented and unable to see their opponents. With the chaos unfolding as planned, Jun focuses his gaze, designating the warrior Tar as the next target to move. Tar lets out a roar, his eyes glowing red as he transforms and charges into the unsuspecting bandits hidden by the smoke. His powerful assault sends the enemies flying, their screams echoing through the thick cloud of dust and confusion. Transformed and agile, Rhea also tears through the enemy ranks while the bandits curse the beasts they cannot see. Another part of the chief's strategy is revealed as a bandit finds his feet sinking and getting stuck in the ground. He looks around in confusion, trapped in the softened earth, as more projectiles fly past him. Unable to see through the smoke, a bandit's face is pummeled by two powerful fists, sending him reeling in pain. Elsewhere, transformed deer folk charge through the battlefield as a bandit frantically curses the rabbits, telling them to stay back. Three other bandits furiously attack a fluffy sheep villager, but their weapons simply bounce off its thick, resilient wool. Exhausted and confused, the men wonder why their hits are not connecting, while the terrified sheep trembles but remains unharmed. Suddenly, bandits across the field cry out in pain, struck by small projectiles that burn on impact. The source is revealed to be the tiny red creature, Rezel Drake, who hovers above them as the bandits curse its name. From their vantage point, the chief and Rhea watch the battle, confident that they have seized the advantage and can win. But his confidence suddenly turns to rage as he glares at the battlefield, questioning who dares to mock him. The captured bandit, now free, rallies the remaining men, ordering them to cover him while cursing the rabbit folk. The bandits begin to counterattack, focusing on villagers who are popping up from holes in the ground like moles. Seeing one side of his forces struggling, the chief calmly instructs Rhea to go and provide them with support. She agrees immediately, and a gust of wind kicks up as she prepares to dash from his side into the battlefield. Even the chief looks surprised as he watches her leave, his eyes widening at her incredible speed. Rhea becomes a blur of motion, her long hair flowing behind her as she closes the distance to the enemy in an instant. The freed captive spots her approaching and takes aim with his crossbow, vowing to take the fox warrior down. An arrow whistles through the air, aimed directly at the back of the charging fox warrior. Its sharp tip is reflected in Rhea's calm, focused eye as she senses the projectile closing in. She twists her body with incredible agility, narrowly dodging the arrow as it flies past her. Planting her hand firmly on the ground, she uses the momentum to halt her forward rush and pivot. In a flash, she launches herself into a powerful spinning kick, her body a blur of motion. Her foot connects squarely with a bandit's jaw, the impact sending a shockwave through the air. The man she struck grins smugly through the pain, taunting her and asking if that is all she has. In response, Rhea ducks low, her twin tails swirling as she dodges under the bandit's guard. She then unleashes a devastating high kick, striking him directly under the chin with immense force. The bandit gasps as he is launched helplessly into the air, completely overwhelmed by her attack. A shadowy beast form follows her as she continues her assault, knocking another bandit to the ground. She lands a powerful axe kick, driving her heel down onto another bandit's head with brutal force. The captive leader watches in disbelief as his men are defeated, shouting at her to stop what she is doing. Rhea stands over the fallen bandits, her back turned to the man as he curses the beast folk in rage and frustration. But his anger quickly turns to wide-eyed terror as he realizes the sheer, overwhelming power of the warrior before him. With one final, powerful kick, Rhea sends the captured leader sprawling to the ground. The man lets out a final gasp of pain before falling unconscious, smoke rising from his bruised body. The fox warrior stands victorious over the defeated bandits, her point made clear. Her expression is fierce as she warns them not to underestimate the beast folk ever again. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Dump looks around at his overwhelmed forces, his expression grim. His hand clenches into a tight fist as he glares at the villagers, enraged by their unexpected strength. His eyes narrow as he decides to use one of his skills to turn the tide of the battle. A dark aura begins to emanate from his body as he channels his power, ready to unleash it on the villagers. The new chief watches this display with surprise, wondering what skill the bandit could possibly have. He recalls that in the game, Knight Defense, only knights of a certain rank could use skills. The ranking system is shown, with only knights ranked C or higher possessing the ability to use special skills. A stat window reveals that Dump is a C-rank bandit with the skill Strength Enhancement, which increases his size, attack, and defense by 50%. The empowered bandit scoffs at the terrified villagers, calling them pathetic fools for losing to tiny monsters. Suddenly, his taunts are cut short as a shadow falls over him. And he looks up with wide, shocked eyes. Before he can react, a massive hand grabs a log, effortlessly lifting him off the ground. The enhanced bandit stares up in disbelief as the transformed tar towers over him, asking what this monstrous creature is. His eyes are wide with terror, a cold sweat breaking out on his brow as he confronts a power far beyond his own. The chief watches from a distance as a massive shockwave erupts from the battle, signaling Tar's victory. His expression is one of shock and awe, clearly not expecting such a definitive and powerful display. Meanwhile, back in the flooded cavern, the rest of Crane's men have been defeated and are submerged in the water. Crane sits alone on a rock, impatiently wondering how much longer he must wait for his allies to return. Back at the fork, Scream Spike's remaining men are gathered, wondering why none of the other groups have come back. Crane grows tired of waiting, deciding he doesn't need to worry about his boss, and will take matters into his own hands. He orders his remaining men to head towards Dump's location, pointing them down the correct tunnel. The battle is over, and the villagers have successfully captured all 60 of the bandits who attacked them. The chief looks over the field of captives, their heads sticking out of the ground, and feels a sense of relief about their victory. Tar reports their casualties, stating that 23 are severely wounded and 42 have minor injuries but can still fight. The young chief's expression darkens as he realizes that despite having nearly double the numbers, their losses were severe. His villagers tend to their wounded comrades, but he knows that regardless of the cost, the operation was a success. However, his gaze remains hard and determined as he reminds himself that the battle is not over yet. He knows the remaining enemies inside the cave still outnumber their effective fighting force. Looking out at the battlefield, the young chief declares that it is time to enhance their strength beyond just numerical superiority. He turns to Tar, who stands ready, and addresses him as Taurus, preparing to give his next set of orders. The chief instructs him to distribute all the confiscated weapons from the defeated bandits to their own warriors. Among the various maces, daggers, and crossbows lies Dump's powerful hammer, a C-rank weapon that will surely aid them in the next fight.